If you're like me, you've got contacts in every single possible format: email, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And it's becoming harder and harder to stay on top of them. To help me make sense of this mess, I use Smarter Contacts, the free app that automatically creates rich profiles for all my contacts right on my smartphone. The thing I love most about this app are the rich profiles it creates. I can see photos, job titles, company details, and updates from social networks all in one place, all in context. This is a free app and available on all mobile platforms. Head to www.untether.tv/smarter to download it today.
Hey everybody, this is part 2 of 3 of my interview with Holger Ludorf.
So, one of the great things, the way that you guys spread was opening up your backend, opening up your API, and allowing everybody to basically feed off of the data that your users are ultimately putting in there. And early on, merchants jumped onto this and started using it. I think the first time I ever heard about it was Starbucks, right? You get and everybody uses this example. You become the mayor of a Starbucks, you get a discount on a latte or something to that extent. But is that your monetization strategy? How do you think that there's that you guys can, or are you guys thinking about revenue generation, or is it still UX, UI, and driving user growth?
Right. Yeah. So first of all, I think the good news for the merchant really right now is that all these tools are available for free, right? We're pointing everybody to foursquare.com/business. There's a self-serve platform on our website that allows people to get verified so that we make sure that they're really the owner of a certain store or restaurant. And once they're kind of set up that way, they can start setting up specials for different type of purposes, either driving in loyal customers that get rewarded on their 3rd or 5th or 10th visit. We can also drive in new customers, and etc. So there's a number of tools, a number of specials that we offer. We also offer a dashboard that allows the owners of these stores or restaurants and these merchants to see who are their top 50 customers on Foursquare, who are the last 50 people who have checked in, what's the gender and age breakdown, how many of those check-ins have been tweeted and posted on Facebook and so forth. So there's a wealth of information that they can also use and can leverage, not just the small merchants, but also the large chains that are already working with us. So that's the good news is that our merchant base right now is growing, and all the tools that they can leverage are really for free. So it's kind of almost like a no risk trial. In terms of your question regarding the monetization, the good news is we don't really feel the pressure right now to kind of force the monetization topic. We really want to build the best product. There's so many ideas and so many things that we still want to offer to the user that we can probably launch over the coming months. We certainly have some very good ideas about monetization, and the team is working on that in the background. But we don't really feel the pressure right now to do this. And we will introduce these things when we feel these products are right and we feel the users are ready for it as well.
I mean, but you don't have an idea of that. It's kind of a feeling that you guys are gonna get. I mean, you're in an odd spot because you've got patient funders, obviously, right?
Yes, we have the fortunate thing is that our investors are kind of on board with us. These are very, very experienced investors that have invested in a number of other startups in our space and in the kind of adjacent spaces as well. And they're just as patient as we are. The good news is we don't have any kind of hard timelines. There's no pressure on us. We do this when this is organically right, and that's kind of all I can say about it.
I love that, organically right. But there's got to be you've got to, in the back of your mind, you're thinking through this thing as you're going. So there's models that you might achieve, but I mean, you just continue this until when? 30 million, 50 million users?
Again, like we don't have these type of kind of long-term targets. I mean, as I said earlier, I think, nobody would have thought 2 years ago that we would be at, 50 million plus users today. I don't think companies of our size and in our space that is so brand new can really plan, 12, let alone 24 months out. No. We, have certain targets for the coming months. But as I had said, when we feel the product is right and we feel the user is right, and by the way, and when we think the monetization aspect still actually drives a lot of value both for the users and the merchant, that's the point when we're going to introduce those things.
Yeah, and you know what, I'm of the firm belief, I believe in monetization. I believe that the worst thing that you can possibly do is get to 15 or 20 or 30 or 40 million users and an active and thriving community inside of it, but then all of a sudden try to turn on some revenue and them saying, "Oh, screw you, we're going to go somewhere else," and nobody wanting to buy. Do you guys ever worry about that? Or, but to your point, you're focusing on finding that right mix so that it's going to be of value to the end consumer.
That's correct. Yeah, and I think we have a very, very engaged and highly enthusiastic and excited user base, right? We are a social network where people are building social graphs of their best friends that they share this very personal aspect, somebody's private location, with their friends. And so, I'm personally not worried that people will move away from the product only because we would introduce monetization sometime in the future. On the contrary, as I said, and as you said yourself, we will do these things and they will never kind of break the user experience. I guess the good news is that we have a ton of ideas around this topic, and we might have to try different things that might work, but I'm sure we'll figure that out.
Well, based on what you guys are doing, so you launch Explore on the web, you launch Explore on the device, you launch Radar. Your product development is obviously about capturing some kind of trend or something that's happening. At certain thresholds, you've got enough information in your databases to be able to offer value to me, and then you add another tab basically in the product that complements the things that I'm already doing with there. So I check in at a hockey game or a ball game, and you tell me what's around. You tell me who's there. You tell me what their preferences are. And I think that's it's incremental innovation that at some point the light will go off, and you'll be, well, that's how we turn this into revenue at some point, right?
Right. Yeah. That's probably one way to look at it. I think it's the challenge here is to keep the product very, very simple while adding on these different type of features, whether they are pure product features or the monetization features, because simply as you had just said in the example, just adding tabs at the bottom is obviously not the solution because that's not a scalable model. And I'm always amazed that the Dennis and the product team, how they figure out to kind of keep the product simple, but at the same time, putting some of these new functionalities into the forefront. That is really kind of the challenging aspect on the product side. I guess the good news is that we have some very, very experienced people who've been thinking about these local problems for a long time, with Dennis at the helm, kind of being the product visionary, but also people like Naveen and Alex Reinhardt, our head of product. They've all thought about these things, and I personally can just say, being on the business side of the company, that I feel very very fortunate to have such a product team on our side.
Okay, let's talk business here, because North America, obviously the growth kind of stemmed. It started in New York as the nut, and then kind of grew from there. Austin, obviously around South by Southwest when you launched, and then it kind of spread. And even, I'm up in Canada. I'm in Ottawa. Quite a few people using Foursquare in Ottawa, but nothing compared to checking into somewhere in SFO and automatically getting a swarm badge, right? Because of the number of people. Obviously, it's high concentration. What about expansion? You're getting check-ins from around the world, but where's the growth coming from? How does North America stack up with rest of world?
Right. Yeah. The user makeup right now is about 50% of our users are in the US. The other 50% are outside the US. We're seeing a ton of growth outside the US, but it's still pretty much even right now. In terms of kind of presence as a team, we have a San Francisco team, we have a New York team. The San Francisco team is around 25 people now. We have another 80 in New York. We actually just moved into a new office in Soho to kind of have some room for expansion. The great news is we can offer any interested engineer to work for us on the West Coast or East Coast. I have to make that quick plug here. So we are still trying to grow this stellar team and finding great talent out there. The other thing we've done now internationally is we've just put our first person into the European market. My colleague Omid is heading our BD efforts.
Is that the first person outside of North America?
It's certainly the first partner-facing person outside North America. We have a great colleague of ours working out of Edinburgh, Scotland, but he's on the engineering side. And also we had for the longest time somebody in Sydney, I think, in Australia, who actually just recently moved to New York. So we already had some international colleagues for some time who've been full-time employees with the company. But Omid really is our first kind of partner-facing full-time force in London. And so right now we're trying to kind of basically seed this first office to tackle basically the European market out of London.
How is that? I mean, Holger, it's got to be interesting to kind of expand like that outside of the home territory, which is, New York, San Francisco. You guys are known. Foursquare is known in North America. What kind of experience is it like to put an office in Europe and start from scratch and try to be known? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it's fundamentally different, right? I think I feel fairly comfortable with it being European, being German myself. So I know that the culture, I know that the business and how people use phones, for example, is fundamentally different in Europe from the US. It is actually even different within the different European countries. Yeah. And Omid, for example, my colleague, is also European himself. So from that perspective, we certainly know what we can expect, but there still needs to be a bit of research done. And the market is dramatically different. Basically we're talking to some players that are completely global. So we might be talking to Starbucks in Europe just as we're talking to Starbucks in the US, although they're kind of separate organizations. But then there's obviously a whole slew of very UK-centric, very European-centric companies that we're also talking to, both on the media side, on the retail side, brand side, and so forth. But the other thing is that we are not as big in one single country than as we are, in the US. So there's still some education that needs to be done. That's part of the reason why we want to forge some of these partnerships in Europe, for example, because I think these early partnerships that we've done with companies like Starbucks, American Express, MTV, and so forth, they also helped us kind of spread the word and kind of spread the word of the value of Foursquare. The good news is, I guess, that we have a lot of people already in Europe, a lot of people on the business side. They certainly know us, so it's not like a matter of doing a ton of cold calling, but there's a lot of work to be done by Omid, and I know that he's very, very busy right now. But we're going to grow that team and get him some help on the ground. And I'm pretty confident that we're going to build some good partnerships out there.
Do you think you have to, because culturally and the way that people use the mobile phones or smartphones in Europe versus North America, do you think that you're going to have to modify the product at all to accommodate that, or do you think how much influence do you think that the European market will have on the way that you move the product in North America?
Yeah, I could see that over time, but right now, because the bulk is still in the US, and the team sits here in the US, I think my take on it is, because we've seen so much organic growth internationally already, that I think is a sign that the product is actually right for those international markets as well. So we have not tweaked the product in any way other than actually translating it. We've done a very concerted effort over the last 12 months to translate the application for all mobile platforms into, I think we're now at 11 international languages, because we know that in Germany, people prefer a German language version, right? And the same thing in Japan and Korea. So we actually also see that helps us with getting adoption in those countries. But I think beyond that, I don't think we would really tweak the product. What we would do is we would introduce international partners, international retailers, media companies to make local offers for those markets. Right. And I think that will really be the product twist that will basically help localizing the experience for the user.
Yeah, it's just so interesting because what we're witnessing with Foursquare is a company growing up, right? So what might have started off as an app, right, in a nascent early ecosystem, has now grown into a multinational 100+ person company with offices around the world and certain requirements that you have to adhere to. And at some point you're a 500 person company doing the same thing and a 1,000 person company doing the same thing. And it's very interesting to watch this happen to you guys, starting at the mobile level first and then expanding out. I'm pretty sure it's interesting to see from the inside as well.
I was going to say, it's even more exciting experiencing it kind of every day. We walk in the office. No, it's super exciting, right? I mean, we just actually reminisced a little bit recently when we moved into this new office, because I still remember when we were on the 5th floor of our previous office, and then we had to move into a larger office, one floor up, and kind of just the growth that we've seen over the last 2 years. is hopefully, if we do everything right, an indicator for the coming years. But quite frankly, we don't really think about that. We just really concentrated on the moment right now, where our product is, what we need to do in order to educate our users, and in order to kind of grow our business both in the US and internationally. I think too much forward thinking is probably not healthy either. I don't know. I think most of us, and I would probably say probably all of us are super excited to kind of have this right, and we're enjoying it. Makes the job really easy, actually.